We'll be starting up here in about, a minute and a half. About one more minute, we'll start up. Good morning and welcome to the last of our winter series of foundational webinars. We will be starting back up again in the summer with some foundational webinars, but we're going to be taking a break because we're going out on the road just like you. My name is David Orr. I'm the director here at the New York State LTAP, the Cornell Local Roads Program. And our last webinar is a timely one because it's flagging. We're going to be going out on the road soon, and we need to have people who understand and can do a good job with flagging. Last week, we ran a webinar with no text. This week, we're running one with video. There's no polls except for a few. We're going to start right now inside of Zoom. So behind the background, we have Nick, Amanda, and Adam. And Amanda or Adam, go ahead and run the polls for me, and let's see who's online today.
Okay, the poll's launched.
Okay, there's 3 questions in there, right, Adam?
Correct.
Okay.
What is your primary job function? Who do you work for? And how long have you worked for highways? We'll give it a little bit, and then I'll tell you the answers, David.
Thank you. While you're doing the polls, there is a handout. If you open up your chat pod, you'll get a link to a handout. That handout has in it links to our publications on work zone traffic control, our pocket guides, which I'm going to be talking about a little bit today, and a short video that we did that talks about some things that aren't in the guide. I'll probably touch on some of them today, but they're a nice reminder of some additional things to keep us safe as flaggers and make things better. So what do we got for results there, Adam?
We've got a pretty good mix, a good mix of engineers, superintendents, workers, and other, about 28-30% across the board. Most folks are from towns, although we've got a good number of folks from counties and cities, a few from villages and the state and private sector. And then again, a good mix of people, mostly from 10 to 20 years is the highest number that folks have worked for the department, several over 20 years. And then again, a good mix of 1 to 5, 5 to 10. It's really almost 20-30% across the board for how long.
That's good. That's good. Hopefully for those of you who are new, you've learned some things about flagging before you go out and flag, or if you're a supervisor, understand a few things that flaggers need to do well, the foundational stuff. If you're experienced, if you pick up one thing, we've had a good day. Now, if you have any questions throughout this hour, please open up your Q&A pod, put in your question. Adam or Amanda will break in and they will give us, give me a headset, I can hear you. We can talk about those kind of things. Now, I mentioned the guides. They're in the handout. There's 2 guides. There's a work zone guide and there's a flagger handbook, little pocket guides. Fit in your glove box, fit in your pocket. If you want a paper copy of these, you just have to email us with an address or make sure you're in our database. We can send you as many copies of these as you want. They're really useful. The Flagger one is the one we're going to go over mostly today, but the work zone one's a really good one as well because it allows you to set up a work zone that is as safe as possible. So keep that in mind as we go through the day. And again, this is our guide for the day, a little pocket guide for flagging. Okay. Now, if we open up the guide, the very first thing you're going to notice, it says your safety. Under flagger safety, it says your safety. The first person a flagger is protecting is themselves. So all the things I'm talking about today are to really help make sure the flagger can do their job well, and they can't do that if they're not keeping themselves safe. The next group they're going to keep safe is the crew. Okay. The crew, mainly because they're not inside of equipment. They're not inside of cars. They're not inside of trucks. So those people who are out there laboring, working, those are the people you really want to be protecting. Generally, the public actually falls down a little bit with one major exception, and you probably have all thought about it, and that is people who aren't in cars and trucks and vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists. Those people need to be protected as well. And your job as a flagger is to protect them. Way down the list is the site, and you can see that it says here that protecting the crew and the motoring public and yourself is more important than anything on the job site. But hopefully you keep that in mind as we go through. Now, as we go through this, you're going to see introduction, you're going to see basic functions, the basic functions of a flagger, the why we do this. Your primary job is a guide. You're guiding people through something they're not familiar with. How many times have we come across we're working on something and somebody drives up and they go, what do I do? I have no idea how to get from point A to point B, how to get to work except this one way. So your job is to help them and guide them through that. You can do that best by protecting yourself and everybody around you, and you want to avoid too many delays if at all possible. So keep that in mind as we're going through this hour, that you really want to protect people and you want to guide people through the system. Now, can you answer people's questions? Yes, and we'll talk about how to do that safely, but you want to be aware of the fact that you don't want to be standing in the roadway because all it takes is one distracted driver and we could have ourselves a crash and somebody could get hurt or worse. Okay, so primarily guiding, protecting, trying to avoid delay, and answering questions when you can. Okay. Now, the next thing is the equipment. Again, you can read about it in here. There's a list of the primary equipment, but I'm actually going to start with other equipment. Okay. So, first off, I don't think flaggers wear ties, so I'll take the tie off. I'm known for the ties, but I'm going to take the tie off. I don't think flaggers wear ties. I'll even unbutton the top shirt. But you do want to have good, comfortable clothing. The clothing you wear, you're going to be wearing all day. It needs to be something you're willing to be standing outside, comfortable all day. This is an old shirt, probably going to get retired soon. It's a nice, comfortable one. Would actually be a pretty good one for the whole course of the day. Pair of comfortable pants. I actually like the cargos because I can put my sunglasses and stuff like that in it. But you want to be comfortable. The single most important thing that you're going to wear all day, better have good ones, are your shoes. They better be comfortable. You're going to be standing on hard surfaces all day long. You want to have good shoes. Now, do you need hard toes? That's a policy your agency can have. But even if you're going to wear non-hard toed shoes, make sure they're comfortable. If you do need the hard toes, make sure they're comfortable. We actually recommend you don't wear the steel ones. Get the Kevlar or the ones that aren't as cold in the winter or hot in the summer. If you have to wear the hard toes. Okay. What other equipment do we have? Well, let's look here. You might want a hat. Okay. I've got my highway school hat from a few years back. We'll get a new one this year, but highway school hat, but you need a hat to protect you from the sun. Some agencies do have a hard hat policy. Okay. In that case, you want a hard hat that you've got that you feel comfortable wearing again all day long. Okay. Maybe one that's adjustable. Okay. This particular one is a fixed one, but some are adjustable. But the point is, you're going to be wearing this all day. It's a communication tool, as I'll show you in a little bit. So it's a pretty important thing to have. Okay. So we'll put on a hard hat. We'll use that for today. Again, your policy. Okay. Let's talk about vest. All people in the right of way have to have a vest on. Flaggers especially have to have a vest. This is an old one, old style. Okay. It's Velcro. It's nice. It's light. It's not too hot in the summer, but it's not going to do the job. It doesn't meet the requirements anymore. Okay. And the reason is if I turn sideways, and we do that a lot as flaggers, we turn sideways, I don't have anything reflective over here. I can't see. Okay. So I'm missing what's going on. So you really need one that has panels on the side. That's a requirement. In fact, I'm going to throw that off screen. You know, mesh vest. Don't like that one either. Okay, here's one. As you can see, it's got panels on the side. Okay, I'll throw it on here real quick. And then Nick's going to hit the flashlight. We'll see if it shows up. Okay. Can you see that, Adam? Does that show up when you hit it with the light?
Yes.
You'd be amazed how much you can actually see the reflective stripes even during the day. It makes a big difference from a safety standpoint. Now, this particular vest is a class 2 vest, and there's a big debate about class 2 versus class 3. But let me get this one off. And of course, the zipper has decided it wants to fight with me. So we're going to use the old-fashioned technique for removing the vest. Throw that one off screen. And we're going to grab this nice one here. This is actually one, I don't know how or where we got it. It's actually got the Federal Highway logo on it. It's a nice vest. Lightweight, good for summer, machine washable. It's got pockets. It's even got a little bit of a sleeve on it. Okay. This is a level 3 vest. Now, it actually isn't quite, even with a little bit of sleeves, a level 3 outfit, however. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm wearing a level 3 vest, I'm good. Level 3, if you need to have it at night, you have to have some legs or arms. You have to be able to tell it's a human from a distance, okay? This one doesn't quite meet it, but it is a nice, comfortable vest. I'll leave this one. I'll make this my vest for the day. You got flaggers out there, make sure they're dressed comfortably and can be seen. Now, one thing you might want to think about is put your flaggers in a different color than everybody else on the crew. If you've got your crew all wearing orange, the flagger stands out if they're wearing the lime green, and vice versa. If everybody's wearing lime green, maybe get an orange vest for your flagger, because when people drive up, again, we're trying to communicate. They're going to go, why is that person wearing that different color? So that can be very, very helpful when you're dealing with that kind of thing. Now, Adam, do me a favor. I'm going to ask everybody to raise their hand. How many of you have vests for everybody on your crew? Raise your hand if everybody in the department has a vest when you're working in the right of way or reflective material of some type.
29, 30. Got a lot of responses coming in.
Good, good to hear. Everybody in the right of way should have a vest on, okay? Not just the flagger anymore. So everybody should have a vest on when you're in the right of way, okay? But again, we sometimes recommend a different color for the person who's doing the flagging themselves. Okay, what else have we got here? Here's an old vest. Now this particular vest, as you can see, it needs a bath. But look, watch what happened when Nick hits it with the light. It still shows up. So wash them, keep them clean. The nice thing about these vests is they work really well, even when they're a little bit dirty, but don't let them go too far. You'll know, hit them with a flashlight, you'll see it's not working anymore, okay? By the way, you might want to think about even having more than just a vest. This coat with the arms on it, now we're getting into class 3, but more importantly, we do get rain, we do get poor weather, and flaggers are going to be out there all day long. So you want to be dressed for the weather. Yeah, a raincoat's a little warm when it's hot, but on the other hand, if it's pouring rain, this isn't enough. So you may want to think about a raincoat or even rain pants, okay? So think about the weather. Check that weather impacts before you leave for the day, okay? Now here's a piece of equipment that a lot of people don't think about. They see sometimes air horns. We actually like whistles. So I gotta take the hat off. If you'd open up your Q&A pod, Answer a question for me. Why do I want an air horn or a whistle? Let's see what people say. Why do we want an air horn or a whistle? And I'll warn Nick before I blow it.
Protect workers.
Yep, protect workers. Yep,
For emergencies.
for emergencies. Yep,
To gain the attention of workers. Alert others.
yep,
Alert workers to danger. Get attention, safety. Get the motorist's attention.
yep. All those are great
Over
answers.
construction noise.
And you can hear them over construction noise if they're done properly. Okay. Now, the reason we like the whistle is because the air horn everybody blows until it no longer has air, and eventually you don't know it doesn't have air and it's too late. Whistle works in any weather, they're keyless, and you can hear them inside the piece of equipment. Because what you're really doing primarily is alerting the workers. Somebody just went by my flagger station and they're going way too fast and they may be coming into the work zone. Be prepared. Okay? So I'm going to do a light tap, not a heavy one. That's not very loud at all. Trust me, you can hear this almost anywhere. But this is a pretty important piece of equipment. They're cheap, okay? And if you're worried about somebody stealing it, get some pink ones. It's amazing. People won't steal the pink ones, but okay? Now for night work, we might want a cone, okay? I'll show you how to use the cone later on, but the cone just shows up at night with the pink, okay? Easier to see because you can't see someone's hands. So that's something you'll have available for night work or early in the morning, late in the day kind of thing. Okay. You might want gloves for cold weather. You can actually get gloves that have retroreflective. Now you're getting into class 3 again. But notice what happens with the sun. Okay. This particular pair of gloves was sitting in our windowsill with one side exposed to the sun. And in less than 2 years, it went from both being pretty good to one starting to fade, no longer working. Anything you've got out there in the sun really probably have a 2-year life. Hard hat, vest, maybe a little bit longer, you'll know, but you got to check it and be sure. The sun's pretty powerful if you're out there all day, every day. Don't assume that it's still meeting the standards. It still sends the light back to the user, okay? That's important. Ah, yes, the paddle. This is our primary tool. We don't call them paddlers. I think that would probably go over poorly. Okay, this is the stop slow paddle. This is our primary tool, okay? Now, it's way up right now, okay? Is it in screen, Nick? Barely, okay. This is our primary tool. We like this height. We want this to be up above the height of the cars. And of course, some SUVs are even taller. So minimum 6 feet to the bottom of that sign is preferred, okay? A little taller is okay, but remember, this is gonna pick up a good bit of wind. Some people actually like to have the weighted pole here on these things, okay? Now just to make it easier to see, I'm gonna lower this down a little bit, but normally it would be higher, okay? So there's a stop on one side, tells everybody to stop, and we have slow on the other side, slowing people down. Now in the past, we used flags as our primary device, okay? I have 2 flags here, neither of which meet the standard, okay? They can be used in emergencies, but neither of these actually quite meets the standard. First one is this orange one. Okay, in the Q&A, what's wrong with orange? Why doesn't a flagger want to be carrying an orange flag? See what people say.
Doesn't mean stop.
It doesn't mean stop. Orange is work zone colors. It doesn't really give people a clear message. This is used to alert people that you got a brand new, that you've got a work zone, and you can stick this in like that. Orange is not the color of the flag.
We got another question that came in. What are the typical sizes of signs, or what size are the typical sizes?
The paddle, minimum 18. We actually like these 24 inches, okay? But minimum of 18. The flags, if you are using a flag for emergency use, is 24-inch minimum. And any of the work zone signs, 3 foot, 36-inch minimum dimensions, okay? Now this is the color we're supposed to be using, red, because red means stop, But we don't use these as a primary device anymore because a stop sign, I can tell what that is from a much larger distance because of that octagon shape. Everybody knows what a stop sign looks like. They're not quite sure if that means stop or just slow down or just alert, okay? For emergencies, intersections where there's odd situations, sometimes we need a stop with the red flag. Now, what's wrong with this red flag? See if anybody can tell me what's wrong with this red flag in the Q&A. And yet this is what most of us have.
No reflective material.
No reflective material, so it would only be good during the day. That's one point. That's a very good point, actually, yes. I'll give you a hint.
Uses both your hands.
Well, to keep it open, I do. I have to use both hands. What we're supposed to be doing is having weights on this so that the flag stays down in the wind. Some people will actually duct tape or patch on here some washers to keep it weighted, or they'll put a second stick on here to hold it down. Okay.
Material is fragile.
Yeah, it's very fragile, very light. So this is an emergency use only, and even this, we probably should be weighted, but most of us don't do that. This is what we mostly have. So when you get them open, what you almost have to do is curl the end backwards on itself for a second or two. And in the wind, it's still going to blow and you're going to need two hands. And that sort of defeats one of the purposes of a flag, of being able to use your hand and the flag as a tool together. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. For flaggers, this is your sign. Don't know how you're setting up your work zone. I know in small agencies you're doing everything. In big agencies you might just be doing your flagging stuff. But this sign is yours. This sign is part of your equipment set. When you are not flagging, this sign needs to not be facing traffic. Okay? That's absolutely vital. It's really good communication with the public. So if you're going to be taking a break and there's going to be nobody in the lane, nobody in the traveled way, traffic can go on through, go ahead and come over to this sign and turn it. Okay, and just walk it a little bit further away. Now the public knows, hey, the signs have been turned. Now normally we would have 3 signs in a work zone. Okay, minimum. First sign, road work ahead, right? Might be a symbol sign for the worker symbol, but the first sign tells people there's construction going on. So this first sign, that one, you could probably leave that one up during the day. It's the first sign you place, in fact. Okay. The next sign you come across tells people what I'm going to be doing. Merging. There's 1-lane road ahead. That's the most common for our 2-lane road systems where we have flaggers. Okay. 1-lane road ahead. Okay. Now, sometimes you'll see people do this. They'll put up a right lane or left lane closed ahead. Why is that actually not preferred? So in the Q&A, why would that not be preferred as our second sign? Why do I really want 1-lane road ahead instead if I'm closing off the lane?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. This is a bit of a challenging one. It's more of a work zone question, but it's flaggers. I know you're going to be running across this. So
Should be the symbol sign per MUTCD. You might switch, allows flexibility.
it's the flipping and flexibility. And this sign, right lane closed, is usually for multi-lane roadways that you can continue on through. By saying 1-lane road ahead, you're telling people it could be your lanes closed, it could be the other lanes closed. It gives you more flexibility, and this is the preferred sign. Okay. And then, because you got flaggers, you could put up a sign like this, be prepared to stop. Oh, there isn't such a sign, but that's what this sign means. Be prepared to stop for a flagger. Okay, so that's the third sign in our series. Are there times when we can get away with 2? Yeah, in an urban area with a good sight distance, limited speeds, there's some exceptions, but normally we want 3 signs, especially in a rural area, okay? Now this is a work zone thing, it's not a flagger thing, but it's just a reminder. You'll sometimes see an end roadwork sign, just a little rectangle. That's needed when it's confusing. You don't have to have this, but if it's not obvious the work zone ends, you might want to think about putting one of these up to let people know, okay? But it's not as critical as the others. But this is the flaggers. Turn it when you're not using it. The other thing we recommend is a cone or 2, maybe even 3, depending, okay? How does the cone help us? Well, if I put a couple of cones along the roadway where I'm working, it defines my space. The public sees these 2 cones. It helps them understand where I might be standing. And it alerts everybody to see something a little bit different. Now, if you're doing a lot of mobile work, maybe you just have one that you walk down with you, okay? If you're going to be standing in exactly the same place all day, you might want 3, so you can put one out a little bit into the lane to slow people down. But this cone can be very helpful to define your location, where you're going to be. As you can imagine now, traffic is coming towards the camera, okay? I've got myself a little place I'm standing, and my hand is sitting out here, okay? And this reminds me of one of the most important things we need to think about from a foundational or why standpoint. Where does the flagger stand? How many times do you see flaggers standing in the roadway? Way too often. More flaggers are killed being hit by a car when they're standing in the roadway than any other single way they're hit, okay? Flaggers should be standing on the edge of the roadway, out of the traveled way, with their hand possibly over there with the paddle. But they need to be able to be out of the way, because like it or not, people are distracted, people are speeding, people are not paying attention. And remember, who are you supposed to protect first? Yourself, okay? So you definitely want to be standing off the road. The cones can help you remember that and define your location where you're going to be standing, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, it's important for your flaggers to look good. It's a communication tool. It tells the public you respect the job. If you send flaggers out there who have dirty vests, it's all tucked up in funny places, their hat looks like it's seen better days, what are you communicating to the public? Okay, so you really want to make sure the flaggers are well dressed, ready for the job, can do the job all day long. It's good communication with the public. Now, in terms of your advanced warning signs, we talked about the 3 that you need. The fact that you want to turn that sign when it's not in use. I prefer you turn at least 2, if not all 3 signs, especially if you're taking your lunch break. But if you get in the habit of turning at least that flagger sign, you really do a good job communicating to the public. Because think about it, if you drive through a work zone and you see all 3 signs are up and nobody's working, and you were just going down to, say, do an errand at the bank or go see a doctor, and an hour later you're driving back and you see those 3 signs, what are you thinking? Well, your brain is going, well, they weren't working last time. They're probably not working now. So turn those signs. So when you put the signs up, normally what you would do is you'd actually place this sign last, and you only put it facing traffic when you're ready to flag. Get the flagger out there. Get the flagger working before you do anything in the work zone. Before anything goes up, you've got a flagger out there. Okay. Then you put the cones up. Then you put up the work zone itself. Okay.
David,
So yes.
we've got just a statement. 3 cones are also helpful along the center line on vertical or horizontal curves in areas where motorist visibility to the flagger may be diminished.
Yes. Yes, we're going to talk about position, but yeah, that's a very important point. If you've got a situation where it's hard to see, you can put some extra cones up to help define where the flagger is or help define where traffic needs to go. Cones are cheap. Lots of cones don't hurt at all. So put a few extra cones up to define location. especially when you get to hills and corners. And I'll show you that here in just a second, okay? But remember, the flagger needs to be in a position where they can be seen. Don't be standing over the crest of a hill. Don't be standing on the inside or outside of a curve. So I did a quick little sketch here of a work zone, and Nick's telling me to move it over, so I'll move it over even further. So, if you imagine, we've got our work zone here, and it could be hilly. We don't know that for sure, but from above, it's curvy, and maybe there's a bunch of trees here. And you've got the trucks and the equipment doing the work itself. A vehicle just can't necessarily see everything. So our temptation is simple. We want to put the flagger right next to the work zone. Okay? That flagger right next to the work zone, right here. I'm keeping it small on purpose. Nick wants me to make it bigger. He's right. It needs to be bigger. But resist that temptation. Think about the driver. Where's the best place you can actually see the flagger? Maybe it's up here, 100 feet away from the rest of the work. In fact, it might even be better because now they're not blending into everything else. Okay? And the same thing is true on the other side. Our temptation, put it right next to the work. That's what all the drawings show. Avoid that. Think about where is it going to be best so the driver coming up the road can see the flagger. Again, maybe it's further down. Okay? 150 feet away from the work zone. In fact, if you think about it, you might even be able to set it up so the two flaggers can see each other. That's really nice because then you don't have to worry about radios or phones or anything like that to communicate, or any pilot cars or stuff like that. So adjust. Because remember, the primary thing is you want to be able to be seen. And if you've got two flaggers, how do you communicate with each other? Well, again, these days we're using phones more and more. We're using radios, okay? But heck, a hat is a simple communication device, which is one of the reasons I recommend a hat, not just for sun, but also communication. So you can pick the hat up and tell people, hey, I'm clear. You can move on. Or the wag, which means, hey, attention, something's going on. And of course, if you've got a stop slow paddle, the paddle and the hat together can tell you something. If, for instance, as a flagger, you see a guy doing this, he's getting your attention, he's showing you a stop sign, what does that mean? He's getting your attention, he's showing the stop sign to you as the other flagger. What does that mean? See what people say, Adam.
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. What am I communicating here?
He's got a problem. Driver disregarded instruction. Traffic
Possibly.
going through.
What
Stop.
does the driver see coming to the work zone behind the flagger position? Actually, he'd be standing over here, by the way, technically, almost assuredly.
Turn your sign around. Need to turn the paddle around.
Ah, the driver sees the other side. If I'm showing this to my partner, I show a stop sign to my partner, I want them to be stopped because the drivers on the other side see slow. They see the other side of the sign. So what he's essentially saying is, hey, just reminding you, we need to stop the traffic in the other direction. Maybe they see that you've got your stop sign up as well. If both of you see stop, all the drivers see is slow. Okay? So keep that in mind. What you see as the other flagger is the opposite of what the drivers see, because you're on the inside of the work zone or at the edge of it. Okay? Because you want to stop the traffic like this. Now, sometimes you want to stop both sets of traffic. You need to figure out how you're going to communicate that. Some people, they just use a hand signal for it. Okay? Some people like to have the radios, it's a little clearer, but you just need to figure out ahead of time what your communication tool is going to be for that particular thing. Okay? Now, when I've got my stop sign, I'm going to put my flag paddles here. And again, normally be on the pole, but just from a distance standpoint. And I'm going to move this out of the way. So I'm standing here on my pole, keeping it down just for the video. I want to release traffic, okay? When I release traffic, whether they're in my own lane or they're in the other lane, make sure you get eye attention. Look at the driver. Focus on them. Get their attention, okay? They're probably, when you stop them, they probably picked up their phone or their burrito or their coffee. Get their attention. Let them know you're going to let them go in just a second. You can point your sign, give a little wag that's sort of a hint. Hey, I'm going to let you go here in a second. When you're ready to let them go, point to the lane they need to go to. If it's the same lane, just keep your hand simple. Point to the lane you're in. If it's the other lane, put your hand across and then turn the sign to the other side. But remind them it's still slow. Okay? Now, a good way to remind yourself of what to do is imagine you're doing it at night. At night, they can't see your finger gestures, only can see your hand. So imagine the big wand. So the big wand is on, you're pointing to slow, or you're pointing to stop. You're wagging the thing a little bit. You're pointing to the lane, okay? Use your entire hand, please. Imagine the wand. Don't use a finger, please. You'll know why. Okay? Now, sometimes we don't really need to be stopping traffic at all. Maybe we're just going to be waiting. So now the sign can actually be sideways. You're standing there waiting for a truck to back out into traffic, or you're waiting for your partner to do something. Sometimes we'll actually have the sign sideways. Now, if we see somebody coming up like towards the work zone, we might want to go ahead and do a slow them down. Or in some cases, I've done this. We go ahead and stop them, even though there's really technically no need to, but it's a lot safer for you as the flagger and the crew. Okay? So think about that situation. Now, can you walk in the road? What are the circumstances where you can walk in the road? Let's see what people say on that one, Ed. I'm glad they're not just jumping in there, actually.
No one here. Stop slow paddles. Flag should be held in the right hand. In most cases, the escape path for the flagger will be on the shoulder on the flagger's left side. They do not want the paddle to become a tripping hazard if they need to drop the device and use the escape path.
Yeah, so what that comment is saying essentially is you always want to be sort of on the road side. The road's over here from your paddle or your flag. You're holding it usually in your right hand. This gives you direction with your other hand and gives you an escape route. That's something to think about. Don't park your truck right next to where you're going to be flagging, because if you have to run an emergency, you could hit your truck. I've seen that. You want to be able to have an escape route. And again, you don't want to be tripping on this. Just drop that paddle, drop that flag, get out of the way.
Also, multi-lane closures came in.
Multi-lane closures can come in. They get really complicated with flagging, okay? A lot of times multi-lanes, we actually have to have a lot of cones, and we actually sometimes have to have extra flaggers in that particular case. So, but the question is, when do I go into the roadway? The actual traveled way where there is traffic. There is really only one time you should be in the roadway.
One, yes, only after, wait a minute, traffic stopped and confirmed stopped in both directions.
Yep. So sometimes you know it's going to be a few minutes and you're starting to back traffic up. It can actually be really good to communicate with the first or even the second driver to let them know it's going to be a minute or two. People behind the first or second driver see that you've done that and they assume, hey, they're talking to them, we're okay, things are working well. You don't have to go in the road. I actually like it, truth be told, I used to just stay on the side of the road and walk to the car most people have electric windows. They can roll the window down and just let them know, hey, it's going to be a couple of minutes. I'll let you through. Watch for my signals. I will let you know when it's ready to go. Okay. Part of the other reason we want to stay that stop sign where it is on the edge of the road, where do we expect stop signs to be? On the edge of the road. So staying on the right is actually good. But if you need to, you can go out and answer people's questions. Okay. Get back though to your station, your cones, as quickly as you can in case some idiot comes in to the work zone. Okay. Couple of other things to remind you. If you've got a really long work zone, there's no way you can communicate real easily with your partner except maybe by radio or by phone. But more importantly, the public doesn't quite understand when you have a really long work zone what they're going to need to do. You may want to think about pilot cars. You may want to think about giving people something that tells you it's the last car. It's more of a work zone issue, but I know flaggers, we do that a lot. Think about those situations before you get out there. You might even want to practice in the yard what your procedures are going to be so everybody's on the same page, including the workers themselves. Okay. Now, a lot of people say, I don't work at night. I don't have to worry about things like having stripes on my cones or extra reflective vest or flags. I don't know. Last couple of days getting up, it was dark. We get daylight issues either through changing of time or because of winter, it gets short days. You're going to be out there a lot during the dark. I always assume need to be ready to go at night. And of course, what happens in an emergency? What happens if you get a flood event? You're out there flagging traffic. So assume you're going to be there at night. And even during the day, as we saw earlier, and watch this magic with the light show here, even during the day, if people have on their lights, you're actually safer if you're set up as if you were at night. Okay. In fact, for those of you who don't know this, if you just turn your lights on, even during the day, you reduce the crash rates by about 30%, which is why running lights are now required. Truth be told, your full lights aren't a bad thing. Okay. Yes, single flagger. Let's talk about the single flagger situation. People want to do one flagger. I don't blame you. One flagger is nice. It's a lot less, one flagger. It's supposed to be used only in a couple of situations. Low volume, low speed. Okay? You don't want to be using it on a road with 1,000 vehicles a day. You just can't keep up. You don't want to be using it on roads where people are going 55 miles an hour or more. You can't, it's just too dangerous. You really should be limited to urban areas where it's fairly low speed, low traffic, like a residential area. The other thing you want to do though is, and I see this happen way too often, if you're flagging by yourself, there's two things you got to do that are really important. First, where do you stand? We'll come back here, get my map here. In the Q&A, tell Adam, where do you stand? Where does that single flagger stand if you can get away with a single flagger?
Road edge,
Road edge.
where
Do I
both
stand over
sides can, I'm sorry.
one flagger? Where does one flagger stand in my work zone?
On the outside edge of the curve, middle of the zone, center of the work zone. Right side center.
So essentially, you need to be standing on the far side of the road from the work because you're more visible then, you can be seen. And you'll notice I didn't draw a single line. I didn't draw a single point. If you're flagging by yourself, you need to be willing and you should be moving back and forth. I'll usually actually put a couple of cones, one at the beginning and one at the end of where I'm going to work. So when I want to stop traffic coming into the closed lane, I'm going to walk all the way down my work zone to where I can see that traffic easily. When I'm done, okay, now I want to stop the open lane. I'll let those people know, hey, it's still stopped. Give them a symbol, give them a signal, say, hey, it's still stopped. Back up slowly. When you get to the other side of the work zone, you can still see them if you've got the right kind of work zone, Then you can let them through, and your stop sign is now ready to stop the traffic coming the other direction. It means you got to walk back and forth. So you can't do this if the work zone's very long. You know, if you're replacing a manhole, if you're doing a small job with a sidewalk, and you've only got 20, 30 feet closed, and you've got a small buffer, yes, you can do that. But you can't do a 400 or 500 foot. You just can't do it. You can't go fast enough. So a single flagger can work, but you're standing away from the work, not on the same side, and you're going to be walking back and forth, which is why those shoes really important. Okay. Now, when you get your pocket guide, if you don't have one already in the back, there is a list of do's and don'ts. You really want to review the do's and don'ts. Okay. It's a good reminder. The reason we like these guides is before you go out and flag, especially if you haven't done it in a while, like coming out of the winter, just read through and especially look at those do's and don'ts. Things such as staying alert at all times. Making sure you know what the schedule is going to be. When is it going to be open and closed? Use the proper equipment. Wear the proper clothing. Just go through all of the list of things. Okay? Try not to daydream. Okay? So it's a good thing to review the do's and don'ts that are in here. Okay? Now, this pocket guide doesn't cover everything. We actually put together a short video that gives some of the reminders, such as having water, such as having sunscreen. It's in that handout. You can go look at that later. It's a good reminder. We also have some stuff on our website about flagging and stuff like that. But I want to finish with a couple of other things as a reminder. If you are supervising flaggers, don't make them work all day. Give them breaks. Golden rule works here just as well as it works everywhere else. Don't do to the flagger what you wouldn't do yourself. How long would you want to be standing there watching the traffic? An hour, 90 minutes? Give people a break, which leads to a very important point. If you are a supervisor, do you know how to properly flag? Do you have someone who can take the place of that flagger for a few minutes and do it well? And as a supervisor, you should be able to step in. So you need to have the same abilities and skills and equipment so you can flag for those few minutes while you give people a break. Okay. And then lastly, again, I'm a big fan of practice. You can actually set up your cones, your work zone, even your signs in your shop yard or even in a garage bay on a bad day and have people walk through the work zone and let people practice. It's an amazingly good technique to try, see how things work, and learn the good way. Because if a couple of guys blow through the work zone, nobody gets hurt. But if a car does that, we could have a serious injury or a crash. Okay. So I've got little about 12, 13 of. I wanted to get about 50 minutes. I didn't want to go a full hour. This is a fairly short one. It's not PDH worthy. Sorry about that for those engineers. But any questions, any thoughts about flagging before we let you go and get out on what looks like a pretty good day until later today when we get some rain?
What about flagging at intersections?
Flagging at intersections. That's a really good one. Flagging at intersections. I'm going to pull my board out back here again. Okay, so now we got a work zone. We'll make it a T, but it could be a cross street. And then we're working, say we're working on a manhole or something right near the beginning of the thing. There's lots of other setups. How do you flag for something like this? Well, if it's low enough traffic, you might even be able to set up some self signage. But once the traffic starts to get up, you can't do a single. You're really going to need at least two. You might be able to get away with one flagger. Different color here, Dave. Who's controlling the intersection. If it's really low traffic, the paddle will actually work, okay? Because you probably have one of these stopped and people still have a stop sign. You can use hand signals and the paddle and actually get people through the work zone. But sometimes this is where that flag is needed. You may need a flag. You may need to even have a couple of different flaggers if there's a lot of traffic. You might have to have a second flagger controlling the stopping traffic, okay? So you actually alert people and they literally one at a time let them through. You might need a second flagger. And of course, you've already got the flagger on the closed lane down there. So you may need more depending on traffic. But you might be able to set things up where people can self-regulate. You might even be able to put a stop sign up that wasn't there before. But if you do that, you do need to do a regulation. You actually technically have a stop sign. So you need to have the board, if it's a town road, authorize temporarily putting up a stop sign. Okay. What else you got there, Adam?
With heat issues, can you drink water from a bottle when flagging, or is it considered distracted?
No, you can drink while you're flagging. That's fine. Part of the reason, actually, as I say, I like cargo pants and vests like this with pockets is I can actually keep a water bottle. I don't have a bottle of water, but I do have a bottle of coffee. I've actually got a water pocket that I usually actually would use. You can have water with you. You don't want to be drinking it while you're actually controlling traffic, but when you've got them stopped, you got a minute, you want to take a quick sip, that's okay.
Can police issue a ticket if he or she observed a motorist not responding to flagger signs?
Can you issue a ticket if you see someone not obeying a flagger? Yes, they can. It's better to follow a traffic control device. Yeah, there actually is in the VNT, you have to follow the directions of a flagger, okay? Now, as the agency, you need to make sure you've documented that you've got a work zone that would protect someone trying to fight the ticket. But yes, they can issue a ticket for someone who blows past a flagger or fails to follow their directions.
And Dwayne Palin actually put the section of the vehicle and traffic law in the Q&A for everybody.
There you go. So yeah.
Thank you.
Flaggers definitely have that power. Okay, so you actually, with great power, it becomes great response. Oh no, that's a different story. Any others we got there, Adam?
Nothing as of right now. Oh, wait a minute. The flagger overrules all existing traffic control devices. So just a comment.
Well, the flagger does technically have the power to overrule those devices, but
if it's a question, does the flagger overrule all traffic control devices?
Technically, yes, but it can be very confusing because if you see a flagger with a stop sign and there's a big light because you're at an intersection that has a green light, you can confuse the public. So while the flagger stop sign does control, if you're going to be doing work like that, shut that light off. Okay, or if it helps you, make it blinking red. But yeah, you may want to cover those signs up if you're going to be there for more than just a short, if you're just patching or you're doing a quick repair, that's one thing. But if you're going to be there all day, I would cover up the signs that could cause confusion. That's why you'll see, for instance, speed limit signs where they cover them up and put up a work zone speed limit. In that particular case, if you don't cover up the other speed limit signs, people have been known to get out of the ticket. So yeah, the flagger does control, but better yet, cover or turn the sign signals off.
And another comment that I think you'd agree with, tailgate talks and tailgate meetings are always a good way to help with logistics of the site setup.
Very good idea. When you start the day, get everybody together and figure out who's doing what. You can do it at the tailgate. You can do it in your yard before you leave. We're a huge fan of tailgate talks. In fact, we have a whole bunch of them on all kinds of issues on our website. And that was what I was going to end with. Anything you want, we can always help you out. You can always go to our website. You can search for NYSLTAP. You can search for CLRP. And we're at Cornell. So our website is nysltap.clrp.cornell.edu. And with that,
Everybody have yourself a great spring, a safe summer, and we'd like to see you in our workshops and coming up in a little while, the 2022 Highway School. Everybody have a great day. Be safe, be kind. Bye-bye.